This Film is Lit, the podcast where we finally settle the score on one simple question. Is the book really better than the movie? I'm Brian, and I have a film degree, so I watch the movie, but don't read the book.
And I'm Katie. I have an English degree, so I do things the right way and read the book before we watch the movie.
So prepare to be wowed by our expertise and charm as we dissect all of your favorite film adaptations and decide if the silver screen or the written word did it better. So turn it up, settle in, and get ready for spoilers, because this film is lit. Reese Witherspoon's back must be killing her because she absolutely carried this movie. It's Legally Blonde, and this film is lit. Hello and welcome back to This Film is Lit, the podcast where we talk about movies that are based on books. On this week's episode, we're discussing Legally Blonde, the 2001 romantic comedy?
Yeah.
I guess it's a romantic comedy. That's what it is, for sure. Not a whole lot of romance throughout the whole thing.
No.
But there are, I think it still counts, probably. So, it is Legally Blonde. It's our first law movie. I don't know how many other ones we'll do, but it is our first law movie. We have, I believe, all of our normal segments. We don't have Lost in Adaptation because I was not confused by this film. But we have all the rest of our normal segments, so we're going to start like we always do with Let Me Sum Up.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
So, the plot is similar enough between the book and the movie that I'm just going to give a brief movie summary. Spoilers abound. If you haven't seen the film, this will catch you up so you kind of know. Or if you saw it a long time ago and don't remember everything. Story is about Elle Woods, who is a sorority girl at an unnamed school in the film, I believe. I don't think they ever say it.
It's a USC.
Well, that's what it's supposed to be, but they remember I said in the prequel they didn't allow them to use that.
Yeah,
I think that's what it is in the book. And then they weren't allowed to use it in the film. So it's just like an unnamed undergrad school. And she's very popular, rich, pretty sorority girl who's dating a guy named Warner, who is getting ready to leave to go to law school. He's graduating, and he's going to go post-grad and do this law school thing. And she's expecting him to propose to her because they've been together for a while, and she thinks they're in love and blah, blah, blah. She loves him very much. She's kind of obsessed with him. They go out to dinner. Turns out he's not proposing, but in fact dumping her because she's not serious enough. He wants to be a politician one day, and he thinks he needs a Jackie Kennedy as opposed to a Marilyn Monroe is what he says. So he dumps her, and she gets the bright idea, well, if he wants a serious girl, then I will go to law school as well. And so she puts her mind to it and gets into Harvard because she is smart, but she's like, I think her undergrad degree is like in fashion or something like that. Something along those lines.
Fashion merchandising in the movie, yeah.
And so, but she ends up doing well on her test. She gets into Harvard, and her whole plan is to win back Warner. As she's there, she realizes Warner's not worth her time, and she decides she wants to actually just become good at law itself, and so she studies and is doing well in classes. She runs into some other characters here and there, some students who are kind of bullies, that sort of thing, and everybody kind of doesn't think she deserves to be there, and that she's, they judge her on her appearance and their first impression of her, which is kind of the whole point of the whole movie. And but ultimately, she proves everybody wrong. She gets this super prestigious internship at one of the professor's law offices. He's a criminal defendant, and she ends up working on the team that is helping defend a woman who is accused of killing her husband. And it turns out this woman was a former sorority, member of the same sorority as Reese Witherspoon, and is like a trainer, an athletic trainer. And Reese Witherspoon believes her and thinks she didn't actually kill her husband. Everybody else on the defense team kind of doesn't really buy it. Also, there's the other main kind of important character is a character named Emmett, played by Luke Wilson, who sort of becomes the other love interest apart from Warner over the course of the film. Although I would argue there's a different, even better love interest, but we'll get there. We'll get there. I'll pitch what I should have been the sequel later in this episode, and you will agree. Because I've never seen the sequel, but I feel solidly that it doesn't do what I think it should have done. So ultimately, she's working on the defense team, and she kind of her sort of different way of looking at things leads to her kind of being able to crack the case. Also, her law professor who got her the internship is a creep. And when the defendant finds out about that, she fires that lawyer and hires Elle as her sole, well, not sole, because Luke Wilson also has to be her defense lawyer. So Luke Wilson and Elle are now defending the defendant, played by, what's her name? I can't remember, but I got it in my notes somewhere. And Elle basically cracks the case, even though she's only a law student, figures out who did it, gets them to confess in the courtroom in a big dramatic moment. And successfully defends her client. Everybody's happy. We get she graduates from Harvard a couple years later. I don't think I missed anything important. She graduates from Harvard a couple years later. She's she's not the valedictorian, quote unquote, but she gives a speech. And we get some post credit sort of the
yearbook.
Yeah, the yearbook, the Breakfast Club close, where it's and then this person did this and this person did this, kind of over them, smiling. And we find out she gets engaged to Luke Wilson's character, who lives happily ever after, because they didn't know if they were going to get a sequel, obviously, or had no plans to make a sequel at this point. And so, her innocence, her positive attitude, her naivete, and her pluckiness win out. And she proves a lot of stereotypes wrong, and that's the movie, and the end.
Yep, the end.
So there you go. If you didn't see it, that's roughly what happens. Or if you saw it 10 years ago and didn't remember, now hopefully you've been refreshed. We do have Guess Who, so let's do it. Let's play the game.
Who are you?
No one of consequence.
I must know.
Get used to disappointment.
Okay.
All right, we have a couple here. This book was interesting.
Okay.
We'll talk about it more later. The writing was kind of up and down.
Okay.
So I included several descriptions, some of them because I thought they were kind of funny.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
All right, so starting out. Her mousy brown hair was bobbed and cemented in place by a navy blue headband with appliqued daisies. She was Brooks Brothers from head to toe in a navy knee-length skirt and jacket ensemble and sensible navy heels.
So the mousy brown hair, going on the movie, it's obviously not Elle, because the whole point is Legally Blonde is that she's blonde, so it's obviously not Elle. It could be, it potentially could be, she has one sorority sister friend in the beginning of the movie. She has two main sorority sister friends. One of them is played by the actress who plays the crazy lady in Waiting, and that's the person I think it could be, because she has short, kind of dark hair. And I think she wears a headband fairly often. But the character I think it actually is, and I don't know remember the character's name, is Selma Blair's character of Vivian. It's Vivian, who is the new girl in Warner's life that he is now with when Elle gets to Harvard. And the Brooks Brothers make sense for her because she's also, comes from a very wealthy family and that sort of thing. And the short brown hair bobbed, the navy blue headband, the daisies doesn't quite make as much sense on her, but everything else about it, the knee-length skirt and jacket does make sense. So I'm going to say, and the sensible navy heels, I'm going to say that that's Vivian.
It is. Yes. It is that character. Her name is Sarah in
Okay.
the book. They changed her name.
Fair enough.
And she's a lot mousier in the book than she is in the movie. Selma Blair is pretty.
Yeah.
All right, up next. The neutral of her sleeveless linen empire dress melded almost perceptibly into her straw-colored hair. Her eyes were a keen, inquisitive aqua blue.
Oh boy, this could be any number of characters. I'm gonna assume it's not. It seems too sparse to be Elle. I feel like Elle would have more, as the main character and basically the titular character. I would assume that her description will be a little more involved. So I'm gonna think it's not Elle. Other people with straw-colored hair. I don't know what an impure dress is. It's a brand, I assume. I don't...
It's on pure waist. It means the waist is high, like directly under the bust.
It could be... I don't know when somebody would wear that kind of dress in there. I don't know what scene somebody would be wearing a dress like that in the movie that we saw. Other than like when Elle is trying on dresses for her date night or whatever, but I don't think it's that. So I'm going to say whatever her blonde friend's name is from the sorority.
This is actually a description of Brooke.
Who?
The alleged murderess.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I forgot. We only ever see her in...
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
yes, we only ever see the character in, like, prison jumpsuits. That's not entirely true. She does actually have a dress kind of like this in the courtroom at one point.
Yeah, I guess she does.
She has a sleeveless dress at
Yeah.
one point, I think, in the courtroom, so maybe that, but I forgot about that, because in my head, she's primarily, like, in a prison jumpsuit.
Yeah,
so.
most of the time we see her in her prison orange. And she's not actually in prison in the book. Like, she's on trial for murder, but she made bail or whatever because she's rich.
Yeah, okay. Shucks.
That would have been a dead giveaway,
Brooke,
though, if she had
that's her
been
name, yeah.
in an orange jumpsuit.
Yeah, that would have been very easy.
She appraised her appearance once again in the mirror and decided she needed more blush. Her long blonde hair gleamed and framed her heart-shaped face. Her flawless fair complexion was set off by huge deep blue eyes that shone with kindness, and her size 2 figure was poured perfectly into her red slip dress.
I was correct about Elle's description being a slightly more in-depth. That's Elle.
Yeah.
Yeah. They did make one major change. She's a size 4 in the film. She says specifically, and I only remember because she says, well, I guess she could be a size 2, but she says at one point to the trainer, she's like, you took me from a size 6 to a size 4 or something like that.
Yeah.
So. Now, again, she could be a size 2 now, but whatever.
Gotta love that main character looking at themselves in the mirror as the prelude to their description. Classic.
It is pretty classic. My first book.
Yeah.
Description of a character.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which it may have been this person's first book. It seemed like it. It seemed like it from what we read in the prequel. So.
All right, moving on. His tall, blonde, and handsome good looks never failed to leave them all in a stunned silence.
Well, that would be Warner, I would assume.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, he's tall and handsome in the movie. He's a little more dirty blonde.
Yeah.
But he's blondish, yeah.
Yeah. He's like blonde and tan golden boy.
Yep.
Her hair and eyebrows were exactly the color of uneven burnt orange tan in a can. She stared at the frizzy halo.
I mean, well, her eyes and hair and eyebrows are exactly the color of uneven burnt orange. Nobody has that color hair that I recall in the movie. It could be. My only other thought would be, who the heck would that be? A couple characters, real quick. It could be the nail salon lady, but I think I remember reading this that she's not in the movie or not in the book, so I could be wrong about that. But the nail salon lady, who, well, she may be in the book. That one scene we'll talk about. I don't know her name. Paulette could be her, because she kind of has tan in a can would kind of work for her character. She doesn't have orange hair in the movie, but she has blonde hair. But like that description kind of seems like it could work for that character. The only other person I can think of, that's the only one. I don't even know who else it would be. I'm going to say Paulette. I don't know if she's in the book.
It's actually Chutney.
Who is Chutney?
Oh my god, it's it's Linda Cardellini's character.
Oh!
We literally had the same conversation earlier today.
I don't remember that being her name. I only didn't pick her because I read ahead to the last one. And I thought it was her. But now I think I know who the last one is.
Don't read ahead.
Sorry, I read the next. I couldn't
there.
not read the next description, and I thought, well, that makes sense for Linda Cardellini's character, kind of, and so I thought it might have been her. But okay, that also makes sense. That was actually one of my guesses, and like I said, I didn't go with it because I saw the next one. So, whoops. Go ahead.
All right, last one. A frizzy-haired brunette feminist with unshaved legs, a scrawny body, a unibrow, and huge, rough hands.
So yeah, that, like I said, the frizzy-haired brunette and sort of the feminist thing kind of worked for that Chutney, I guess is her name, to me, Linda Carlini's character in the movie. I guess not all of it so much necessarily, but anyways. So I would assume that this, assuming this character is in the book, the only other character I can think that this would make sense for is the one who, the friend that they forgot about in the movie, that like at the end of the movie, this character is like in the crowd, like applauding, like they had a character arc, but they had a moment together, but I never remembered them having like a friendship. Anyways, she meets her on the first day in the film when they're on the quad, like doing their little introduction game, and there's like the Russian guy. He's not Russian, but he has a degree in Russian. There's that one random physicist guy, and then there's the girl who's like, she says she has a degree in women's studies or something like that. That character, yeah. I don't know her name.
The stereotypical feminist girl.
Yes.
I don't know if she's ever given a name in the movie. She's Fran in the book.
Okay.
But I don't recall that. I put this description in there because it's so freaking mean that I felt like compelled to include it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's not great.
Yeah.
It's not great. It's not a great take. But is it, so it's that character, I assume?
Yeah, I mean, it's her, like, equivalent.
Right. So the thing that was weird to me in the movie is that, so they start out, and she's, like, when they're introduced, it's very clear that she doesn't seem to like Elle because she judges Elle immediately from Elle's appearance, and doesn't see her as part of the sisterhood, quote unquote, or whatever. And in the movie, there's a scene in the library where, like, the smart kids are mean to Elle, and as she's walking out, that character, Fran, I guess we'll just call her Fran for lack of a better name, says like something about her calling her a dyke or something. And Elle's like, no, I wouldn't say that or whatever. And maybe she did or something. And that's like the only scene. And you can see on the Fran's face, she's like, oh, maybe I misjudged you. But then they like don't have any other scenes together.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the movie, after Elle gives her speech, Fran and the other guy that I can't remember his name, like I said, the kind of dweeby guy.
Yeah, the like big tall guy.
The big tall dweeby guy. They're like sitting together and they both like smile at her and clap, and she kind of like looks at him and smiles, and I'm like, what? Like, I get it with the dude a little bit. Like, they had that one scene where she like
a couple other interactions,
but I don't remember these other two characters. Literally, I felt like there must have been some scenes on the cutting room floor
where
they forgot to shoot them or something, because I was like, they did not develop a relationship between these two characters, and they're acting like they did, and it's very strange. So, okay, so I got what? 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. I got 4.
Yeah,
not too bad. 4 out of 6. I thought I did better than I thought I did. Felt like I missed like most of them. So. All right, that means it's time for me to ask. Was that in the book?
Nicholas Flamel is the only known maker of the Philosopher's Stone.
The what?
Honestly, don't you two read?
So, I got some. I'm gonna try to hit some of the, sort of like the popular moments in the film, like the things you've been posting on social media all week. The things that I knew of from the film, having never seen it.
The
stuff
recognizable
from the trailer,
stuff that became part of pop culture.
The stuff that kind of, took place, it became part of the zeitgeist. We're going to ask about mainly that kind of stuff, and a few other things. First up, there's a scene in the beginning where Elle is shopping for her dress, as I mentioned, for her big date with Warner. She's in like a fancy store. Kleinfeld's or whatever. Not Kleinfeld's, but what... We talked about it in the prequel. I said the name of it, and now I can't remember. We're there at some fancy, like LA boutique or wherever she goes to school. And one of the people working at the store sees her and thinks she can take advantage of her. So she tries to sell her like a discounted dress for full price, like an old out of style discounted dress for full price. And Elle like goes full Sherlock on her and is like, oh, is that the blank, blank, blank made out of this material? And the lady's like, yeah. And then she's like, oh, sewn this way with this sort of thing with this? And the lady's like, sure. And she's like, actually, that's not possible, because if you sewed that dress that way with that material with that way, it would destroy the something, whatever. Like, she, she She like, this is our little introduction to her like lawyering this person.
Yeah.
Kind of like to give us that hint that that's part of her personality. It's a fun little scene, but it reminds me of something like, it's like a Sherlock moment where she's like, I don't know. Is in the book?
No, it's not in the book.
Okay. Do we get is there any sort of equivalent of an inkling of her that you can remember of her sort of ability to, or any inkling that she has this deep down the ability to become a lawyer? Like, do we see any of that early in the book?
Not really.
Okay. Maybe that's a better thing in the movie then.
Yeah.
We kind of see the potential there. I thought this was really dumb. And I know I get that like it's a comedy, like it's kind of a goofy early 2000s comedy, and they have lots of silly things. But this was it's one of those things that just kind of takes, for me at least, kind of takes me out of the film because it's just so like, okay. But not in a way that's so obvious, like so over the top that it feels intentional. It just feels like a lazy writing. I don't know. So she's going out on this date with Warner, and she's fully expecting him to propose. She gets a fancy dress, and he comes to pick her up, and he like walks into the entry hall of their giant sorority house, and all the girls are waiting there, and he like brings her flowers. And takes her out, and they go to this fancy restaurant, and they're having dinner, and then he's like building up this conversation, and she's waiting, and then he goes, "We should break up." And I know that's the joke, like the build up, and then that's the joke, but it's so stupid and like it's so ridiculous, and like obviously nobody would ever do anything like this. You would have to be the most obtuse person in the world. And I get that that's also kind of the point for his character. Like, I guess it kind of works, but also it's just completely ridiculous, and it kind of makes me roll my eyes because I just don't buy it at all, if that makes any sense, compared to like other elements of the movie. Is that whole situation with the breakup and the build-up all play out? Is that in the book?
Yeah. It actually plays out very similarly.
Okay. Dumb. You see what I'm saying though? Like,
No,
it's
I
just
see what
like
you're
so
saying,
obviously like nobody would ever behave this way. Like, you would have to be the dumbest, like most ridiculous person, cruel person in the world to behave this way. And it's just like the fact that he's so like doesn't get it.
Yeah.
He's like, what? Oh, oops, sorry, I guess. Like, and I get it that like that's the point of his character, but to me it's just kind of like lazy, hackneyed writing. Like, there's no nuance to that character. Like, that he's just like, oh, okay, anyways, bye. Like, oh, you thought I was gonna propose? No, we're breaking up. I just took you to the fanciest restaurant in town and brought you flowers to break up with you, and like in a public place. Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, but it's in the book, so there you go. So when she decides she wants to go to Harvard, which is in the movie where Warner's going and where she wants to go, she instead of writing an essay, they say she needs an admissions essay. She doesn't write an essay. She shoots a video essay in the film, and that's her sort of admissions essay, is a video of her in bikinis and whatnot, sort of doing silly things. Is that from the book?
No.
Okay. I figured that felt very much not that felt like a movie thing. Like, okay, how do we turn this admissions essay? Does she write an admissions essay? I'm sure she does. You probably
I'm sure
have
she does.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they turned that into like a fun visual thing. But it's
it's silly.
It's silly, but it's fun. It works. So then she gets into Harvard. She gets there. Is it Harvard in the book, or is it?
It's Stanford.
Stanford. Okay. So she gets into Harvard in the movie, and she gets to the university, and she's starting getting her classes, and she runs into Warner, and she's talking to him, and she wants to meet up with him later, and they meet up, and then it turns out he's already not only dating but engaged to a new girl, and this is Vivian in the film, or whatever Sarah you said in the book. Is that what happens in the book? Does he already have a new lady?
Yes.
And they are engaged?
Yes.
In just a few months?
Yes.
Wow. What a jerk.
Right.
What a guy. What a guy. I figured that, yeah, that makes sense. So this is one of the things I thought was kind of silly in the movie. And again, I get that it's a comedy, like it's just, but she gets to Harvard. law school, and she's getting into her classes and stuff, and every student that she runs into, and this is the whole point of the movie, so I get it, is that they're all judging her sort of on her appearance and what they expect of her, their expectations. They're assuming a lot about her, but they're all jerks to her. Like, every single student that she runs into is like a giant bully, and like not only like dismissive of her and still and like sort of just dismissive of her. They're like actively like 10-year-old bullies to her. Like she goes to the library and she's like, "Oh, can I join your study group?" And they're like, "Duh, it's like a smart person thing, so no." And I'm like, how old are these people? Do they act like that in the book?
Yeah, I've made the movie maybe amps it up like a little bit, but they're definitely not nice to her in the book.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Like, I expect that, and I get, like, that's the whole point, and I think I liked a lot about, I gotta say this now, there was a lot of elements of this movie that I thought were really good. Primarily, as I mentioned in the intro, it's Reese Witherspoon's performance, and not only her performance, but the writing of her character, I think, like the way her character's written, because it's not all her performance, but a lot of it is, like, it definitely elevates it. A lot of the other elements in the movie I thought were pretty not great. A lot of the writing was like really lazy and kind of like hacky and terrible at times.
The source material.
Sure, and maybe that is it. Maybe it is, you know, a direct translation of the source material, but it just felt so like sophomoric and just like cheap and easy and like just lazy. Like, so much of the script felt lazy. It was very predictable, obviously, throughout. Like, I predicted who the killer was like immediately. So now that was more the movie's fault for who they cast, but kind of predicted that immediately. And just kind of like every little twist and turn was like, you know, not even twist and turn, just kind of every plot point was very predictable, which is fine. I don't need it to be like I don't need to be surprised when I'm watching a romantic comedy necessarily, but it's just, you know, I thought a lot of the dialogue and scenes here and there were just like really like late. Like, one scene in particular that really rubbed me the wrong way was the in terms of how, like, I thought it was a fine scene, but just how like clearly like this is a first pass at writing all this dialogue was the scene where the dweeby guy, I don't remember his name, is trying to hit on that girl.
Oh yeah.
And she's like, "No, I don't date guys like you. You're a loser." Like, the way she's talking is so on the nose and obtuse, or not obtuse. It's just so on the nose, and like nobody talks like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I like the idea of that scene, but then Reese Witherspoon walks over and is like, and it has some fun dialogue. Like, Reese Witherspoon's dialogue is pretty fun in that moment where she's talking about, she's we spent one night together, and then you leave me after giving me the most pleasure I've ever had in my entire life, or whatever she's, you know, it's like this, and like her stuff's good, and who knows how much of that is the script and how much of that is her kind of amping that up, but that, like, that scene in particular, it's like, just take one more pass of the dialogue, because it's all so cheesy and just like nobody speaks like this, but the scene itself is like a good scene. And I felt that way a lot.
Oh, I think there's a couple factors here. One, like I said, the source material.
Yeah.
Two, 2001.
Yeah, sure.
And also like the type of movie made in 2001.
Right.
Like the romantic comedy chick flick. 2001.
Yeah. I think the thing that bothers me the most about it is how good some elements of the movie are, and how sort of nuanced and deep, like I mentioned, specifically like Elle's character is, and I will say I think a lot of that is their performance, but I love and I'll get to it more in the when we get to like odds and ends later. But just the way her character is written and sort of some of the themes of the movie, I thought were handled really well, really deftly, and felt very ahead of its time. But then so much of the dialogue felt so of its time and so like just bad that it was this weird clash of like, oh, this is really good, but also terrible. Well, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
and I'm thinking back to, because we talked about the writers in the prequel episode, who also wrote Ella Enchanted.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Which, remember, there was the line in that movie where the prince literally says, "You're not like other girls."
Yeah.
Like, but They also wrote 10 Things I Hate About You, which was one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
So I wonder if maybe one of them is a remarkably stronger writer.
It could be that. It could also be, I wouldn't be surprised if this is the kind of movie that gets a lot of like, there's other, like a lot of writer's room treatment. Mm-hmm. Like these two wrote like the script, quote unquote. Like the main two writers that we talked about in the prequel wrote like the script, but then it goes through punch-ups and rewrites and blah, blah, blah. And who knows how much of the dialogue that they actually wrote.
Yeah, that's
you know
a fair
what I mean?
point.
To where like sort of the heart and soul of like the characters and the themes from their script are still there, but maybe some of the dialogue got, you know,
was written by
a writer's room of like bad or late 90s comics or whatever, you know what I mean? Like that maybe that's truly, because that also feels very true for like Ella Enchanted, where it's like very clearly they brought in their
sitcom team.
Yeah, they brought in their early
sitcom team.
Yeah, really, and said turn this script into Shrek, and they're like, okay, and we'll try, and they fail, like, you know, and so that wouldn't surprise me if maybe that's what's going on here. I'd be really interested to know, like, to hear like an interview with the writers, you know, a 10-year retrospective or whatever, and see if that's like, if they felt like, oh yeah, 40% of our script was what was, anyways.
10-year, we're going on 20-year now.
Well, I just meant, I know we are now. I'm just saying if they had done like a retrospective 10 years after the movie or whatever, I would be really interested to see sort of how much of their original script they felt was translated to the screen. Because like I said, not to go on, I just think that there's so many sort of good elements mixed with just truly terrible trash. I'm just like, it's weird. So Elle finds out there's going to be a party, and she's missed parties, and this is Vivian's character, Selma Blair's character, is like, oh yeah, we're having a party, it's a costume party, you should come. And then Elle shows up to the costume party dressed as a Playboy bunny, and it's not a costume party, but she owns it. Is that in the book?
No. She does go to a costume party in the book, but it's Halloween, so it's actually a costume party. She's just the only one there who's dressed like sexy.
Oh, okay. I actually liked that scene in the movie. I thought it was like, again, the way she sort of, it's one of, that actually had, and we'll talk about it later, but that had my single favorite scene, I think, in the whole movie, potentially. And I'll have a note about it later that we'll talk about. But I really like, again, we'll talk, I have notes. I could talk about Reese Witherspoon's performance in this movie like forever. I think I was like truly blown away by how good it was. And I've seen her in other stuff, and she's a great actress, but I was like, yeah, you're out. This is like the movie version of Outkicking Your Coverage. Like they're just like, really, this movie did not deserve this performance. But does Elle pretend to be a lawyer and BS legal terms for her friend Paulette? Because that's a fun scene.
No, that's not in the book.
So, like, because in the movie she goes, is Paulette in the book? I didn't ask that.
No. There is a nail salon technician.
Yeah.
Who's like kind of her friend, but she's like a tertiary character in the book that just shows up every once in a while. They don't like have a relationship.
Gotcha. But yeah, so Paulette in the movie is the nail technician, and they spark up a friendship and become like good friends. And she tells her Elle about the fact that her ex-husband, who's kind of mistreated her, stole or basically kicked her out and took her dog.
Yeah.
And Elle says, we're going to go get your dog back. And Paulette tries to confront the guy and get her dog back, but she's having trouble. And Elle shows up and pretends to be her lawyer and like law talks her out of it. And it's a fun scene because it's very early in her legal training. So she knows very little. She knows like a few words. And it's a very funny scene, and I thought I felt like it was a movie edition probably, just because I thought that Paulette probably wasn't like a main character, or didn't, because I knew we'll get there, but I had a feeling it was a movie edition, but I thought it was a pretty fun movie edition. I liked that scene. So sort of the big climax of the film, the big plot line that we get to eventually is the defense case for the trainer that Elle knows, who's accused of murdering her husband. Does Elle get onto the defense team for that case? Because in the movie she gets an internship through her law professor, Professor Callahan, I believe is his name, played by the guy from Titanic. That one, the ship designer, I think, from Titanic, who dies by he's staring at the clock in the like ballroom, and then like all the ship tips and like all the water comes through and he dies.
I don't
feel like I remember that scene. I'm pretty sure that's the same guy. I know he's in Titanic.
I feel like I've only seen the same like 10 scenes
every
from
time
Titanic out of order.
That movie's on all the time, and we'll randomly turn it on, and it's always the same 10 minutes of the movie that we see for whatever reason. But it's always before the ship starts sinking. But does she get that internship? Is that how that is? That what goes on?
She has that internship. It's the same case. It's just not through one of her professors.
Oh, okay.
It's through like a local law firm that takes on interns from the school.
So it's the same thing. They just gave the connection of the main lawyer being her professor as opposed to just... okay, that makes sense. This is a famous line from the movie. You posted a meme of it earlier in the week. I just want to know if it's from the book. Elle, when she's trying to... early on in the defense of Brooke's character, she says, exercise gives you endorphins. Endorphins make you happy. Happy people don't shoot their husbands. Is that in the book?
No, it's not.
On the book. Movie edition.
Yeah.
There you go. It's also bullshit. But happy people shoot people all the time.
There's some logic going on there, though. I mean, it's wrong logic, but she is logicking.
Sure. She is logicking. It's just terrible logic. So, I mean, like, people who exercise murder people all the time. It's pretty common. We talked about this in a prequel, but I just wanted to ask it here in the main episode so we didn't miss it because it's a famous scene. And we had to, get it concrete in was that in the book segment. The bend and snap scene.
No.
Not in the book.
Not in the book.
I knew this, but I had to put it in here like I said. We talked about it in the prequel that this was a late night drunken at a bar scene. The scene was born late night at a bar between the two writers of this script. When they wanted to add a second, when they were coming up with a B plot for Paulette's character with the UPS guy, and they came up with the idea of the bend and snap. So it's a movie edition only.
Yeah.
Not a book. There you go.
I feel like that would be a nightmare to like describe in a book, like what the bend and snap is.
Yeah.
How would you even do it? It would just sound ridiculous.
It looks ridiculous in the movie, but we'll talk about it more.
Yeah, we can talk about that more later.
So in the movie, Brooke's alibi for not murdering her husband. She has an alibi, but she doesn't want to tell anybody because she is a trainer, but she does eventually tell Elle is that she couldn't murder her husband because she was getting liposuction that day, but nobody can know this because it will ruin her career as a trainer if people know that she gets liposuction. And so Elle won't tell the defense team what the alibi is. Is that in the book?
No. But Brooke does have a different alibi that she's keeping secret.
Do we find it out?
Yes.
Can we talk about that eventually? Because I hated that in the movie.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
I think it was maybe my least favorite thing. I really liked the idea of it. The idea of Brooke confiding in Elle and Elle not breaking her trust. And I just didn't like that the thing that it was that the trainer was getting liposuction and she doesn't want her career to be ruined. It's like, to me, it should have been, or if what they could have done with it is if that was the reason, fine. But then ultimately the alibi does come out and somehow the trainer turns that into a positive for her career and sort of and transforms her image as a personal trainer into something more positive and less toxic to women potentially. Mm-hmm. If she comes out and goes, yeah, even I deal with body issues and don't, you know what I mean? Like even I get liposuction because I work super hard and it still doesn't, I don't feel great all the time about how I feel. And I felt like there was some way, it felt like they just kind of brushed under the rug in the film, the idea that like, oh, she's a trainer and potentially leading to sort of unattainable body image issues for women. And she even admits that it is unattainable, but the movie never addresses the fact that her unattainable body standards are like a negative thing that should be addressed. It just kind of goes like, do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
like the movie goes, she says like, oh, you think this butt is just like, I can just exercise and get this? No, or whatever. But the movie then just keeps that all a secret and never addresses the fact that this is like a weird toxic thing, and just kind of goes, no need to worry about that. And that felt like a cheat to me.
It's a missed opportunity.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and again, it's 2001.
Yeah.
It felt like I wish that Elle's, because I liked the idea of Elle's sort of keeping this secret and it being this like, because of the way it relates with Vivian's character and how Vivian starts to respect her because of Elle's sort of, what is the word I'm looking for? Vivian even says it in the film. She says she's not classy, but something like that. That Elle won't tell them the secret, even though it would benefit her greatly. Like, it's very selfless of her to hold on to this secret for this other person. And I like the dynamic that it plays between Elle and Vivian, and between Elle and Brooke's character, and sort of the overarching themes of the movie of lifting up other women and that sort of thing. Like, I liked all of that. I just wish the secret wasn't this weird, toxic, gross thing, like this weird thing. I don't know. Anyways, it's disappointing. So I want to hear what it is in the book, because if it's like a better, maybe less problematic secret, that would be cool. Maybe it's not. I don't know. We'll see. So I forgot I had this question. In the case, there's a pool. I think he's a pool boy. He works for Brooke and the dead husband. And he accuses on the stand. He accuses Brooke he says that he and Brooke were having an affair. And this sort of lends credence to the idea that Brooke murdered her husband because, she was having this affair with this other guy, and like to kind of cast aspersions on her character type of thing. But Elle figures out during the trial that can't be happening, because she's at the drinking fountain, and this character comes up to her and knows what her shoes are. So she, by the power of her Sherlock powers, deduces that this character is in fact gay, and thus can't have been having an affair with Brooke, because as we know, bi people don't exist. But anyways, she basically cracks the case through the power of stereotypes in this case by being like, gay guys know about shoes. This guy's gay. Boom, nailed it. He's not dating her. He's a liar. Is any of that in the book?
No.
Because it's like real okay.
No.
And it never goes anywhere really.
Yeah.
Like, it's not important.
Yeah.
Like, I guess the idea is that he was somehow keeping the secret for when we find out the daughter killed him. Like, maybe he was somehow knew, or was it like, why was he lying about that? I feel like I don't remember exactly what the whole situation was of like why he would lie about that. I think it was that he, like, the daughter was somehow paying him or something, maybe, to lie.
Yeah, potentially. In the book, there are like a couple of other people who just like don't like Brooke, who like testify that she's like hard to work with and like a pain to be around. So maybe they wanted like some element of that, of like somebody else in her life who's kind of like out to get her, so to speak. But yeah, in the movie, it doesn't really go anywhere.
Yeah, I felt like it didn't go anywhere, and it just felt like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
Great. There's a lot of problematic
Yeah,
elements to this.
There's a lot to unpack.
To this little like vignette here that didn't really need to be in the movie. It was one of those moments that didn't, because a lot of the movie I thought aged pretty well. That was one of those like that little vignette I was like didn't age particularly well as a whole. Ultimately, does Brooke, Taylor Wyndham is her full name, I now remember looking at my notes, does she ultimately fire her lawyer who doesn't believe that she's innocent? Well, in the movie, there's a lot that goes into it, but that lawyer ends up being a creep to Elle, and then Elle is going to quit being a lawyer, but then is talked out of it by one of her other law professors, and then Luke Wilson's character, who also works for the creepy lawyer, talks to her, and he's like, and she's like, he was a creep, and he's like, oh, really? Oh, shit. And then that Luke Wilson's character tells Brooke what happened, and then Brooke ends up firing the creepy lawyer and hiring Elle and Luke Wilson to represent her. Is that what happens in the movie?
No.
So does Elle just does it just kind of play out? It just keeps going as it was in the film,
Yeah.
like with the main lawyer and Elle being like on the team or whatever,
Yes. And then I'll talk about it later.
Okay, we'll get to that later, but she does not fire her lawyer and hire Elle. Okay. Is the thing that ultimately cracks the case in the film, what it is Linda Cardellini's character, the daughter of the stepdaughter of Brooke, the daughter of the dead man, is the one who killed, spoiler twist, is the one who killed the husband, her dad, Linda Cardellini's dad, which I called from the first second I saw Linda Cardellini in this film on the stand. I was like, well, she's clearly the killer, which is that thing you do on like CSI and NCIS or like any of those shows where like you're watching and then there's a character and it's an actor or an actress you recognize and they're playing like a random bit part in this thing. You're like, well, clearly they didn't get Linda Cardellini to be in like 30 seconds of this, like, and not that she was a huge star at this point, but she had been in a few things at this point in her career. And it's like, she wouldn't be like basically like a 2-line extra in this movie. She's going to have a bigger role. And so, yeah, we find out she accidentally murdered her dad trying to kill Brooke at the end of the movie. Elle figures all of this out. And the way she figures it out is that she's questioning Linda Cardellini's character, who says she was in the shower at the time her dad was murdered, washing her hair. And then Elle questions her a little bit more, and it turns out that she says she had gotten a perm earlier that day. And even it seems like Elle's the only person in this entire courtroom who knows this, but even I knew you don't wash your hair after you get a perm. But I was like, it seems like Elle's literally the only person who, like...
I mean, sure, maybe. I always got the vibe that she was the first person you thought to ask her what she had done earlier that day.
No, I agree, but after she asks her, there's not like a wave through the courtroom. You know what I mean? When she said, like, because to me, like, when she's like, oh, I was washing my hair, and like as Elle starts unpacking it and going, so you were washing your hair, but you said earlier you got a perm, and blah blah blah. It's not until and I get the drama of the moment in the film. It's not until Elle gets her whole big line out where she's like, and you're not allowed to wash your hair because it ruins the blank, and somebody would know. Like, she has her big moment, and then everybody's like, oh, and it's like, but everybody should have been like, oh, as soon as she was like, and I was in the shower washing my hair right after I got a perm. Like, I was like, oh, well, you can't do that. I don't know. Anyways, it's not important. It's just So is the perm in the shower the big reveal?
Yes.
The big twist? Like, oh, okay.
That's the big thing. The lie. She catches her in. Fantastic.
A couple more questions. Does then, after being caught in the lie, does Chutney, which is apparently her name, does Chutney have a dramatic courtroom confession and said, oh, I did kill him, but it was an accident. I was trying to kill her.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Drama.
I mean, I guess that's one way you could be surprised in court if you catch somebody in a lie and then they confess.
Yeah, it doesn't ever happen, but sure.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. And then the movie just I love that after that in the movie, just like immediately the judge is like, take her into custody. Your case is dismissed. Let's get out of here. I got dinner plans.
Yeah, right. She was hungry. She's ready for lunch.
Yeah. She like wraps that up in like 30 seconds. I was like, I don't know. I'm pretty sure that's not how that would. Okay. And then finally, in the movie, we, like I said, in the Breakfast Club close, we get a little title that says that Elle and Emmett, who is Luke Wilson's character, the other male lawyer who was on the defense team, there was a couple, but he was the main one. They had been dating for several years, and they get engaged. Do they get engaged in the book?
Emmett, who is Luke Wilson's character, is actually not in the book.
Oh.
There is some hint of possible future romance with the lawyer that Elle is working with in the book, whose name was Michael, I believe.
So that's the equivalent, though.
Yeah, that's kind of sort of the equivalent. Right. They don't have as much of an obvious, like, romance as it is in the movie.
Yeah.
But they have, like, a flirtation.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, there you go. Those are my questions. I think I covered everything that people would want to know. There probably was a couple other lines that I missed because I'm not as well versed in this movie as maybe somebody should be for this part. But anyways, let's go ahead and talk about what was better in the book.
You like to read?
Oh, yes. I love to read.
What do you like to read?
Everything.
I think the book digs a little more into how Elle is actually pretty good at like the kind of word puzzles and logic puzzles that you have to do for the LSATs.
Yeah, they kind of gloss over the LSATs.
Yeah. The movie shows her studying a lot, which
Yeah.
I think is good.
They just kind of montage. Like,
Yeah, they kind of montage all the studying, and they show her like kind of working her way up to the score that she wants. Whereas in the book, I think she does some studying, but then she takes the LSATs and she's like, oh, well, these like logic puzzles section, that was actually really easy.
Yeah.
Because I do all like this and this and that in my daily life, and this is like a cakewalk.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, I thought that was interesting. As far as like portraying Elle as actually being intelligent and like capable,
Yeah.
I think the book and the movie kind of tie. It's kind of 6 in one, half a dozen of the other.
Yeah. They just maybe do it in different ways.
Yeah, they do it in different ways. Something that I thought was interesting in the book was that when Elle does get onto Brooke Wyndham's case, her background as like her social circles and her ability to navigate that in LA actually gives her like a huge advantage in that case over like all of the other interns. So I thought that was something interesting.
I think they tried to show that in the movie, but didn't do a very good job. Like, I
Yeah.
think they tried to, like, because she's like, oh, I know her, like, because, you know, she, like, she was also in her sorority, not at the same time, but they were in the same sorority, and, you know, she was her trainer and that sort of thing. And so, like, I think they try to get to the implication that, like, but we never see her interacting a lot with other people from that same type of circle that would maybe make sense.
Yeah.
In a way that would, I think they try to like make allusions to it in the movie. I just don't think they did a very good job.
Yeah, I thought that was something interesting in the book, that she's able to like go out and be smart and savvy enough to get information that the others just wouldn't even think to go get.
Yeah. I think the movie tried. I think they did it a little, but maybe could have been a little bit better.
Yeah. I love what the movie does with Elle's friendship with Paulette and then her eventual friendship with Vivian. I did kind of miss the character of Eugenia. I thought they had like a nice relationship in the movie where they kind of help each other through their classes.
In the book.
In the book.
Gotcha.
Sorry. There is a chapter in the book that I thought was kind of funny. The book has a contested will for Hayworth, the old millionaire or whatever,
the guy
who's
who got
been
murdered.
Yeah. So there's a contested will plot point in the book where this guy, in an attempt to be romantic, writes in his will that he's leaving everything to his most beautiful wife, meaning Brooke, but he doesn't actually name her. So there's a chapter where there's this lineup of like 8 ex-wives all like vulturing for his fortune. Like they come out and they swoop in to prove that they're the most beautiful ex-wife.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of funny. I think
it feels a bit like a fairy tale moment type of thing or something.
Yeah, I think there was maybe potential there.
Yeah.
For a good scene.
Yeah. It definitely is one of those things that you would cut pretty quick early in the process if you're trying to trim your movie down because it's not really essential to the plot. But yeah, it could have been a fun scene.
Yeah, the murder case is the more exciting thing. But
yeah, and that's not remotely relevant to Elle. I guess is the more important thing, and that's the focus of the movie. So,
the pool boy scene. For a silly movie, it results in kind of a fun scene.
Yeah.
Where they're like questioning him.
Yeah.
But gay guys, no designers.
Yeah.
It's so of its time.
Yeah.
And then like they out him as gay.
Yeah.
He gets outed.
Yep.
Which is not cool.
No.
And then and that's what discredits him.
Yeah.
And like I know like technically it's because like he lied,
right.
blah blah blah. but also kind of being gay is what discredits him, which is gross.
Yeah.
So that's something that really ages the movie in a very unflattering way.
I agree. Yeah, that whole scene, I was like, oof.
Yeah.
No.
It's a bit of an oof scene.
It's a yikers. It's not great.
Yeah. And it is, I guess there was going to be something, because the rest of the movie, like a lot of it is, like you've said, kind of ahead of its time. It's kind of like accidentally woke.
Yeah. Kind of, yeah. Yeah, at times, yeah.
But I mean, yeah, and especially for like 2001.
Oh,
it's
for
kind
sure,
of
for
like
2001,
accidentally woke.
Yeah.
But this scene it's
not
it's
good,
an oof.
and it's unnecessary. Like, that's the other thing, is that I think you could absolutely just chop it out of the movie, and it wouldn't affect anything.
Yeah.
Like the plot could still play out exactly the same. So
I mean, I think the only thing potentially that it does is give Elle like another moment.
Yeah.
Of like figuring something out.
No, it does, but I don't need another one when it's that. Like, it doesn't need to be her like I said earlier, like, she wins by stereotyping this gay guy. It's like, okay, all right, well, cool, great.
The way that Elle ends up being able to question Chutney in the movie, I think it's more fun. It's more dramatic. Like, Brooke coming in being like, "You're fired."
Right.
And then they, like, let her stand as counsel, even though she's, like, a first-year law student.
Yeah.
Which wouldn't happen.
No, it would. We talked about it. I think it would.
But not like it does in the movie.
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 So it's more fun. It's more dramatic. It doesn't necessarily make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
What happens in the book is not as dramatic and exciting, but the lawyer that she's working with, she has that aha moment where she realizes that Chutney's lying, and she's like, "Can I please ask her a few questions?"
Yeah.
And the lawyer's like, "Sure.
Yeah.
We're gonna lose this case. What's the worst that could happen?"
Yeah.
And then she tricks her into revealing that she's lied.
Yeah. So. Well, there you go. All right, cool. That was what was better in the book. Let's go ahead and talk about what was better in the movie.
My life has taught me one lesson, Hugo, and not the one I thought it would. Happy endings only happen in the movies.
So something that I really love about this movie is that it overall takes such a sincere and positive approach to Elle and to her friends, and like even the sorority. Like, everyone is so supportive of her, and she's so positive and kind. Like, in the book, her friends from the sorority are kind of mean.
Yeah.
Like, they're not very supportive of her decision to go and do this.
Yeah, and that's
And that's something that I really enjoyed about the movie, was just like the sincerity and the positivity that they decided to go with, where like they absolutely could have gone with her friends are mean girls and they
would have been
are just constantly trying to get her to come back home and give up.
It would have absolutely been the way that 95% of writers, especially at the time, would have written this script. And it's one of the it was literally my favorite thing about the movie. I have like 8 different notes about it in my odds.
I do. I think it's something that makes this movie really special.
No, it really does. I think it's the single best thing about this movie.
Yeah.
Is and I have notes about it, like I said, like 4 different times in my odds and ends part and this is as good a time to talk about it as any, but it's just the whole thing, like you said, even with the sorority and everything, and their relationship is so delightful. But specifically, Elle Woods' positivity is so infectious and so sincere and so ahead of its time for a 2001 film.
Oh, it definitely is something that elevates it over its cinematic peers.
Well, and the
time.
Yeah, and the thing is that I almost don't even know how a movie like that would have gotten made in 2001, because it is the antithesis of almost everything that was considered comedy at the time was, which was pure like cynicism and nihilism
and very
like crass, too cool for school, like your South Park and your where it's this super cynical, sort of, like I said, nihilistic view on the world, where it's funny because nothing matters. Mm-hmm. And because, like, all of our favorite, like, comedy characters at the time were, like, these super cynical, like Seinfeld or something. You know, that's more mid-90s. But the 90s were full of those kind of characters where the fact that they didn't care about anything is what made them cool and funny. Mm-hmm. And Elle is the exact polar opposite in such a refreshing way that it is completely delightful. And it adds so much heart to this film that it's stunning that it exists. Like,
no, I agree. And because at the time too, even if you had a character that was anything similar to Elle, it was like a saccharine, satirized Pollyanna, and everybody else kind of shits on him.
Elle Woods is literally Leslie Knope 10 years before she existed, kind of.
Yeah.
Like a very different version of Leslie Knope. But that same sort of just, like, everything people love about Leslie Knope, about how smart she is and how much she cares and just how sincere and pure and happy she is and how supportive she is of everybody. And it reminded me a lot of, like, everything, what you love about Leslie Knope as a person. And it's so strange and it is such an inversion of what you would expect from this role. Yeah,
because you would expect a dumb girl, a mean girl.
Yeah, and even if like the whole point, even in a script where the whole point is, she's smarter than she seems, and like, she's not the ditzy blonde that you expected. There's still a way to do this movie that is just as cynical and weird and gross as, and I there's like elements of Mean Girls and stuff that I like, it's a fun movie and that sort of thing. But like, I think there's a way to write this movie that has almost the exact same theme about, like, not assumptions and about, like, the sort of girl power, like her finding her worth, that is still incredibly mean and demeaning to, like,
to the main character.
Not to the main character, to the other female characters in the movie.
Oh yeah, no, I agree.
Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, what you would expect from this is I think the thing that is most refreshing about the film is that she finds her self-worth and becomes self-possessed and becomes this incredibly competent person without taking anybody else down to do it, other than people who deserve it. Like literally, like, people who are like, and it's just not like she takes, like the creepy lawyer who, like, hits on her.
Yeah.
Like, but like, even the antagonists of this film, like Selma Blair's character, and it's my favorite story. It's my favorite, like, sort of B plot of the movie is their relationship. Like, her and Selma Blair's relationship is so nuanced and layered and, like, well written. And it's one of those things where you can very clearly tell this is written by women. Like, the nuance to their relationship and the way it grows and changes and morphs over the course of the film is so sincere and wonderful that just, again, it's like, how is this in this movie with these with other things in this movie? Like, it's so strange, but I could not get over how just charmed I was by the sincerity of Elle Woods' character. Like,
I also love, like, something that I love about her relationship with Paulette too, and the way that the movie handles that, is that Paulette is the exact kind of character that a lesser movie would have really shit on.
Yeah, without,
like, she's literal trailer trash.
Yeah, they would have shit on in a way that, because that's, I can't put it into words how the movie makes jokes about its characters without ever demeaning the characters. Yeah. Like, because there are jokes at the expense of Paulette's character. Like like how she's clumsy and, like, when she breaks the guy's nose, and about how she's kind of different looking. Like, it's not like the movie completely ignores all of that, but it constantly finds a way to make it clear that God, I'm doing a terrible job of explaining. It's such a nuanced thing that it's, like, really hard to kind of, like, explain what it is about the way it portrays all of these characters that is just so again, it reminds me of something like Parks and Rec or something where you laugh at the characters at times, but it's never a mean-spirited thing.
Yeah. No, I agree.
I don't know. Yeah, I couldn't, like I said, I could talk it for hours about Elwood's character.
It's a type of writing that I really admire.
Yeah.
That I wish I knew how to do.
Yeah. And I think part of it, I will say, like I said, because I think it all hinges around Elle's character, and I think that I think that is completely dependent upon the performance that Reese Witherspoon gives in this. I think it would, lots of other actresses doing this role, I don't know, but I'm sure there are plenty of people that could do it, but if you didn't get the exact type of performance that you got from Reese Witherspoon in this movie, it wouldn't have worked at all. Like, I think there's just so much nuance to the way she portrays Elle, and so much subtlety to, like, the layers of Elle that in every single scene where she goes through different elements of where she's that ditzy, bubbly, sort of naive person on the surface, but instantly sort of falls back into a much more reflective, introspective person, is just fascinating. And, like, yeah, she deserved to be nominated for a Golden Globe for this. Like, she should have been nominated for an Academy Award for this, probably, but in my opinion. But yeah. Anyways, all right, I'll stop gushing.
So we talked about the scene where Elle checks the salesperson at the beginning of the movie. I liked that. I thought it was a good way to show right off the bat that she is smart, that she is capable.
Yeah.
A little hint at her future lawyering, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was smart of the movie to change the venue. I think part of that was that, didn't we talk about that they couldn't get permission from Stanford?
Yeah, Stanford said no.
Yeah. But changing it to Harvard, I think, makes sense. Obviously, both are impressive schools, but Harvard is, like, the recognizable, impressive law school.
Yeah, it's
like,
the law school.
Harvard. Everybody knows what Harvard is.
Harvard Law.
I think it also makes sense to move Elle from the West Coast to the East Coast and really make her, like, a fish out of water.
Yeah.
Like, take her out of her element.
Yeah.
Even more so than law school takes her out of her element.
Yeah.
The costume party, we talked a little bit about. She does go to a costume party in the book, but it's not the same scene. I love that she shows up with her Playboy bunny costume and stays very strong.
Yeah.
Does not break.
Does not break.
Hands it right back to everyone who's there to make fun of her.
It's fantastic. That line to Selma Blair was great in that moment, because again, that's the other thing, is, like, it's not like she doesn't give it to people when they deserve it. Like, that line to Selma Blair,
and Selma Blair's character absolutely deserved it.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
In that moment,
she did. And, you know, she's like, oh, I see you came dressed up as the same frigid bitch you always do, or whatever, or something like that. It's a great line, and the delivery is great, and yeah, in that moment, she deserved that.
Oh, something else that I love about this movie is that Elle realizes way earlier in the story that Warner is not worth her time, and she really starts applying herself to this profession and sets out to prove everyone wrong. We spend so much time on the I want to get back with Warner plot in the book, and it's gross. And I hated it. I hated every minute of it. I was like, why do you want this guy?
Yeah.
Why do you want him so bad?
Yeah.
He's a dick.
He's the worst.
He is the worst.
Yeah.
Her friendship with Paulette, I've talked a lot about, so I won't go back over that. I did love the scene where she helps her get her dog back.
Yeah.
It's really sweet. Not that we didn't already like Elle, but it was like, it's a scene that really endears you to Elle and who she is and the lengths that she's willing to go to for her friends.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Brooke's alibi. I have, like, my initial notes here. I totally agree with what you said earlier.
Okay.
For the record. In the movie, it's liposuction. In the book, her secret alibi is that she is addicted to the home shopping network, and she's part of like a 12-step program, and she won't reveal the identities of the people who are in this secret 12-step program with her.
Oh.
Which...
Yeah, that's not...
It's not... like, I agree with what you said about, like, it being... her alibi being liposuction, and that all could have been handled better, and they could have really made a good, like, point with that.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a point that they would have made in 2001.
I mean, based on so much else in the movie, I think I don't think it was outside the realm of possibility based on
Fair
of the other...
Fair enough.
This is the other sort of, like, positivity and, like...
I think maybe if this movie were being made now,
Yeah.
they could have definitely gone that route,
Right.
or maybe picked something else altogether.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
I'm gonna call the movie's version of it better for a couple reasons.
Okay.
I think that it being liposuction relates more to Brooke's character.
For sure, yeah.
Than her having like a random addiction to like calling the phone line and buying random shit off of the home shopping network.
For sure. That's a dumb, yeah.
I also thought that the book approached the issue of addiction, which regardless of the addiction is serious.
Yeah.
I thought they approached it in a way that was maybe not great.
Yeah.
And I wonder if the movie could have done better. Maybe it could have, maybe not.
Yeah,
I don't
maybe
know.
not.
I thought that the book kind of made light of it in a way that was not particularly flattering.
Yeah. So it just sounds like maybe they both just
Yeah, I think
neither of them were a particularly good way to go about doing this.
And you know, considering what it could have been in the movie, I would maybe make the assessment that maybe it is better to just kind of, oh, it's this thing, but we're not really going to talk about it, and we're going to focus more on the fact that, like, Elle is being very selfless and noble and
Right.
not divulging the secret.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the one thing in the movie's favor that it does do is that she has a line that she already lost her husband, she doesn't want to lose her career, and I get that, and I think that that's the only thing that sort of saved it for me in terms of, like, Elle really identifying with that and wanting to go to bat for her because of that. Mm-hmm. And so, like, I thought that kind of worked. I think the movie was close. I think if they just would have taken it a little further and had any sort of commentary on the fact of what her career is and the way it affects other women.
Yeah.
And, like, they try to a couple times, but they never go anywhere. Like, there's another good line where Emmett has a line where he says, like, you know, Brooke, where they're driving somewhere, and he has a line about how he says, like, oh, I think it's really bad. You know, he says something along the lines of, like, he doesn't like how Brooke makes women feel fat or something like that. And Elle's like, what? No, she would never do that. Like, she goes, you know, she's like, her opinion of what Brooke is that she isn't sort of that. Basically, the movie's trying to tell us, no, Brooke isn't one of those people who makes women feel ashamed of their bodies and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like, she's a sort of like the positive version of a train, like, because there was absolutely a positive way to be a personal trainer, you know, absolutely, like, and to be somebody who encourages people to get healthy and all that sort of thing. There's a very absolutely very positive ways to do that, and so I think the movie's trying to go for that's what she is. It's just we never like it. It also feels like the movie occasionally is like, but some of the characters are like, well, but it seems like maybe she's not that way, and then like, it just felt like it was just, again, all just kind of shoved under the rug in a way that was unsatisfying to me. Mm-hmm. But
no, I agree that it for sure could have been handled better.
Yeah, but it sounds like the book wasn't particularly
wasn't particularly great.
Okay, cool.
Oh, the friendship build between Elle and Vivian we talked about. I loved that. I also loved Vivian's realization that Warner is an ass.
Yes.
I loved that we could like see the moment that she realized, like, oh,
yeah,
this guy's an ass.
Yeah, it's in the the law office when Elle won't give up the alibi, and Warner's just like, just do it. Who cares about her?
Yeah.
Like, blah, blah, blah. And you see Vivian in the background looking at him like, oh, what the fuck is wrong with this guy?
Yeah.
What a dick. Yeah.
I also liked kind of the slow build to Elle's relationship with Emmett.
Yeah.
I liked that the movie didn't just like dive right into that. Especially that a big point of the movie is her realizing that she doesn't need Warner.
Yeah.
So I liked that they didn't just like automatically immediately give her another guy to lean on.
Yeah.
I thought it was been pretty realistic.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
The way that it was handled.
Yep.
My last note here, this movie has way more to say about women and feminism and the relationships between women than the book does.
Yeah.
Like, way more.
Well, the movie has a ton to say about it. And it was, again, we talked about it a little bit already, but it was one of my favorite things about the movie. It was just how real that all felt.
Yeah.
And, like, again, a bit ahead of its time for 2001.
And, like,
sure.
Another thing that it does for the story is give it acts. Like the creepy professor hitting on her, and then Vivian being like, oh, I knew it, and not supporting her gives us like a second act low point.
Yeah.
Whereas the book doesn't have acts. It doesn't really have like kind of much of a solid plot, really.
Yeah.
We're just kind of like following her through her first year of law school and then like through this case.
Right.
Whereas the movie
is more structured.
Yeah,
like
is more
movie.
structured, and it takes those themes and the things that it has to say and uses them to help construct a structured 3-act plot.
Yeah. I thought it was great, and we'll talk a little bit about it more here in a second. All right, let's talk about a few things the movie nailed.
As I expected, practically perfect in every way.
So the movie nails the basic premise. The idea that Elle is following Warner to law school because she wants him to see her as serious, a Jackie, and not a Marilyn.
Yep.
Warner taking Elle out to a nice restaurant and then swiftly pulling the rug out from under her like a psychopath.
Yeah, straight up psycho.
Straight out of the book.
That guy would murder. That guy 100% in the whatever the sequels are. He murders his wife.
Yeah.
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 And then Elle is the prosecuting attorney. That's what should happen in one of the. That should be the third movie. But we'll get to my sequel here short.
Elle's pink scented resume was an element that was in the book.
Oh yeah. I should have asked about that. My bad. Good job on that one, because I should have asked about that.
We talked about how in the courtroom, Elle realizes that Chutney is lying, and then she catches her in that lie, and it is the same lie about the perm. So that is straight out of the book. The movie also nails something really specific about the tone. The book and the movie really had this in common, where like at times you're kind of asking yourself, like, is this satire? Are we satirizing something here?
Yeah, I guess that's my problem with it is... But,
like, you're never quite sure. And that was a lot of the problem that I had with the writing in the book. Like, there were a lot of moments where I was like, are we aiming for satire here, or is this just bad writing? I don't know.
I think it's just bad writing, because I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying when in terms of the movie. But to me, if you ask me that, is this... Are we doing satire here? I would not be able to tell you what the hell we're satirizing.
Yeah.
Like what the sort of terrible writing is and terrible dialogue. Like what is it's not, to me it doesn't ring true as satire, because one, I don't know what it would be satirizing, and two, it doesn't feel obvious enough. Like it
No, and I guess to be totally fair, the book could be satirizing like chick lit.
Yeah.
And I haven't read enough chick lit to really know for sure that like, oh, we're satirizing like this typical element.
Right.
And
it could be like, you could argue that maybe the movie's satirizing like some sort of like romantic comedies, but it doesn't feel that way, because it doesn't feel like a send up of tropes.
No.
Because it it is a send up in tropes in the sense that it's a complete antithesis of what you would expect character wise, and it's sort of a send up of expectations of femininity in general, but that's not satire. That's just a good critique of media.
Well, and to that point, I wouldn't call it a send up. It's just like, and it's just like an inversion.
Yes, yeah, it's not a send up. To me, it's just a well done.
It's well done trope inversion. It's not a send up or really
a satire. No, it's just taking something and spinning it around in a way that you're not expecting and doing it really well and sincerely, which isn't what satire necessarily is. It can be, I think. I guess you could do it, but I don't think it's satire. I think it's just bad writing, some of it. And then really mixed with really brilliant writing.
Yeah.
So what
do we make of this? Yeah. So I did say earlier that the movie had a lot more to say than the book did, a lot of more like important messages, and that's true. But one thing that the book and movie have in common is that they both edged really, really close to another message or like conclusion, but I don't think either one really got there.
Yeah.
Which is that Elle isn't being discriminated against for being blonde, but for being very outwardly feminine.
Yeah.
And now let me be clear, there is no right way to be feminine. And I mean that in like a sincere gender as a construct kind of way. Yeah. But I also mean that in the way of like, no matter what you do, someone is going to be mad at you for not doing it right. And in this situation where she is at Harvard Law, she is most definitely doing femininity, quote unquote, wrong.
Yeah.
According to the gatekeepers who are there.
Yeah.
And that's where she's getting that friction from. Yeah. It's not because she's blonde.
It's not because she's blonde.
It's because she's doing feminine wrong.
Yeah. I agree. And it's also what I love about the movie is that it's aware of that. It's commenting on that. But I think that at heart is what the movie's getting at, but it couches it in the idea of the, you know what I mean? Of the blonde and that sort of thing.
See, for me, I don't think either the book or the movie quite hit that one out of the park.
I agree. I don't think it hits it out of the park. I think the other thing that it sounds like probably neither of them comment on the movie does zero commenting on it. And I think it's an important element to include, at least to maybe potentially touch upon in some, let me bring my leftist critique into this. I think it would have been a relevant and important thing to touch upon in some way over the course of the film. The fact that Elle comes from an immense place of privilege. Mm-hmm. And now there's some sort of satirical jabs at that. Maybe not, I don't know if satirical jabs is the right word, but there's some allusions and sort of some jokes made about it with her father, who's always has his martini, like when she tells him they want to go to law school, and he's like, "You're pretty and smart, and not boring and not serious. You know, we don't go to law. Like, you don't need to go to school. You know." But there's zero commentary on her privilege at all.
Yeah.
And now that's not the point of the movie, but I think there's a way to incorporate not only her wealth, but it's also a very white movie. Mm-hmm. And there's zero touching on any of that. And now the point isn't that stuff. And I think it's fair to say that this movie is a very important and concise discussion on femininity and that sort of thing. And that's fine. And not every movie has to be everything. I just think that there was potentially could have been some sort of allusion to or discussion of her class, her privilege in a way that would also cause her, that would also sort of help round out the message of the film.
I agree. And that's another thing that I think, like, if this movie were being made now, that would probably be an element. I think we could probably achieve that through Paulette's character.
Yeah.
because if you're at Harvard, everyone's privileged.
Yeah. Right.
So we would need a character like Paulette.
Yeah.
To help comment on that potentially.
Yeah, and I think the movie kind of tries to do it with Paulette a little bit, but like it doesn't really say anything. I just think there's a way to incorporate a little bit of that in there. Basically, what I'm looking for is a little bit of perspective for Elle to sort of just round out her perspective on the world in a way to where it sort of makes her recognize her privilege while also doesn't just because you're privileged doesn't mean you don't have problems and don't have you're not oppressed in other ways and that sort of thing. You know what I mean? It's
and now that I think about it, I think could have done that through the plot line with Paulette's ex-husband and the dog. Because I feel like they could have easily had, like, oh, Paulette presents this problem, and Ella's like, oh, well, why don't you just blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
However she would handle it as a wealthy, privileged person.
Yes.
And then Paulette, like, that's not an option for me.
Yeah.
And then Elle learns from that and uses her privilege to go and help her friend.
Yes.
The movie doesn't really do that.
No.
But it could have.
And I think that would have been another thing. Because it just feels, it's one of those things that it's just, because it's not ever touched upon, it just feels like a complete blind spot. And it's, in the year 2020, we like our feminism to be intersectional as well as our classism, as well as our everything.
As well as we should.
As well as it should. If your classism isn't intersectional, it's dog shit. So, and same for everything. If it's not intersectional, it's fucking bullshit.
It doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't mean anything. So, intersect them. Things.
Things have intersections.
Things intersect. That's the point. All right, odds and ends. I only have a couple. We've talked about most of mine throughout the course of this. Once again, Reese Witherspoon is like super really good in this. I wanted to talk about it. The one scene that was maybe my favorite scene, two favorite scenes in the whole movie. One is at the Halloween or at the costume party, quote unquote, when she confronts Warner. That scene when she is talking to Warner and realizes, and she says like, "Oh, I'll never be good enough for you." Mm-hmm. Give her the Oscar for that scene. Like, literally just that scene. The way she plays that scene I was like, whoa, that's way too good for this movie. Like, that, her performance in that scene is way too good for this movie. And then my other absolute favorite scene was when Selma Blair's character comes into her room and they have that moment. It's after the scene we talked about earlier, where Vivian, Selma Blair's character, realizes that Warner's kind of an asshole. Yeah, and they have that bonding moment. Yeah. In like Elle's dorm room or whatever, and Elle gives her the dog, and they're like hanging out. The way that scene is acted, the way it's written, everything about that scene is so good. It's so freaking good. I was like, wow. Like, again, it's moments like that throughout the film that I just was not expecting that really blew me away. And then for every one of those, there was like two of
and that
the other
scene in
scenes.
particular too. I have to hand it to Selma Blair.
Oh yeah,
she was
real. The vulnerability in that scene.
Yes, the vulnerability, and you could tell that she was like kind of starved for that supportive female relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, the layers to that scene, I think, would go over so many. I don't want to say would go over a lot of people's head. That's not fair. I'm just saying, I think there's so many layers to that scene that that scene you could write a thesis, not a thesis, but you could write a paper on that scene alone and dissect the layers and the performances in it forever. Like you could do a 30-minute video essay just about that scene. Like, it's that good. And like you said, there's so many layers to each of their performances and the dynamics of everything that has led up to those moments and their vulnerabilities with each other. It's just really, really good. Okay, so I gotta talk about my sequel. So here's my sequel. It's like, if the sequel to this movie, and this is after that scene we just talked about, with Selma Blair and Reese Witherspoon. If the sequel to this movie isn't Reese Witherspoon and Selma Blair as a lesbian power couple running a pro bono criminal defense law firm that primarily represents disenfranchised women, we burn it down. Like, that has to be the sequel to this movie.
That is not the sequel.
That's garbage.
But I bet this exists in the world of fanfiction.
This fanfic has to exist. There's no way this fanfic doesn't exist. And I misspoke when I said lesbian power couple. I should have said bi power couple. My bad. Because they're both very clearly also attracted to men. But there's a dynamic between them in that scene that also feels beyond just...
It's charged.
Yes, it is charged. And I was like, how... That has to be where this goes. That has to be where this goes. And that makes perfect sense. They're both lawyers. They run their high power... and they like literally just it's the perfect sequel. But I read the synopsis of the sequel and it sounds garbage.
And I know.
It sounds so bad. Make that movie, Hollywood. Come on.
I'm sure it exists in the world of fanfic.
Yeah. Oh,
fanfic
I thought that was
the way of righting all of the wrongs done to us by corporate media.
I thought about that as I was writing that. I was like, oh, this fanfic exists for sure. Yeah. For sure this fanfic exists.
I'm sure in multiple iterations.
Yeah, for sure. Also, so the moment where and I'll be careful what I say here because the person I'm talking about is potentially litigious. But if you're not that he would ever hear this, or that person would ever hear this. So the scene where the lawyer, the creepy law professor, hits on Selma Blair. Mm-hmm. He's the defense, the very popular or the very famous, well-known criminal defense lawyer, professor at Harvard, who turns out that he's kind of a creep. I wonder who that's based on. Just leave that there. If you're a person who pays attention to law things or the current events or listens to opening arguments. Just say that may or may not have been one of Andrew Torres's former law professors that was based on. That's all we'll say. Maybe not. Probably not. Probably not that person. Won't say who it is. A few people will find that very funny. That's all I'll say. All right, let's do it. Final verdict.
Now, are you ready for your sentence?
Sentence? But there must be a verdict first.
Sentence first. Verdict afterwards.
So the book wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. There were some definite novice writer things happening. Main character describes herself while looking in a mirror, people's eyes being compared to gemstones, etc. But the initial awfulness that I mentioned in the prequel episode kind of leveled out some after the first 10 or so chapters. Or maybe I just got used to it.
Yeah.
We'll never know. But I'm going to have to give this one to the movie. The book had some occasional entertaining moments, but the movie was overall more consistently charming and fun. The movie also had a much better message in the commentary on women trying to make it in male-dominated fields and the need for women to be supportive of other women in all situations. Yeah. But especially in situations like this one.
Absolutely. I agree. I kind of loved this movie. I love-hate relationship, but I loved very much about this movie, as we've discussed at length. So yeah.
Aren't you glad we did this one?
I am. I'm very happy we watched that movie. Like I said, I enjoyed it thoroughly, and I realized I'm in love with Reese Witherspoon, so that was a thing I didn't know about me. Or at least her in this movie. I don't know about in general. But, so... As always, you can do us a giant favor and support us on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/thisfilmislit. Support us for $2, $5, or $15 a month. If you support us for $15 a month, you get priority recommendations, which we've done several of those already. Mortal Engines was one. Skipping Christmas was one. The Christmas with the Cranks. There was one other one, I think, that I don't remember.
Not yet. We've got a couple coming up.
Coming up before too long that are also recommendations. But if you support us for $15 a month, you get your recommendations early up on the list. $2 and $5 you get different things. $2 is ad-free and early access. $5 is access to ad-free early access and bonus content, which we're going to be getting back to now. So don't worry, people. I know it's coming. And then $15 you get all that stuff plus a priority recommendation. If you can't support us, you can do us a big favor by going to iTunes and leaving us a 5-star review and a rating. That would be super great. Or whatever thing you listen to us on. I think iTunes is the main one for ratings and reviews, but if you can do it anywhere else, do it there.
You can also leave us a review like on our Facebook page.
Yeah,
that's
you can go to,
nice
yeah. If you want to leave us a 5-star review on Facebook, you can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Goodreads, all those places, all of our social media. You can keep up with all the memes Katie posts and all that good fun stuff. Katie, what's next?
Up next, we are continuing with the theme of badass ladies. And
it was International Women's Day like 2 days ago.
I know.
So, yeah.
On the short day.
The short day.
Where we lost an hour.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about it.
Nope.
But it is, it's a Women's History Month.
Yeah.
So we're continuing with that theme, and we are going to be doing Hidden Figures.
Nice. This is a movie I wanted to watch for a long time and never saw.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited about it.
I've heard good things in general. I've heard good things in general. I don't know about the book. I know the book came out like right at the same time as the movie.
The book is nonfiction.
Yeah.
So
well,
that'll
the
be
movie's essentially
but
kind of.
It's like a fictionalized account of.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, it should be interesting. It should be fun. It's a very cool story that I know a little bit about just from I'm into science, and they one of the podcasts I love and listen to a lot, Skeptics Guide to the Universe, talked about this movie at length when it came out, and it's funny because I've been re-listening to their back catalog, and I just listened to the episode where they reviewed this movie like 2 days ago or something like that. So the timing is pretty funny, but it seems like a fantastic movie. The main actress is in it. We'll talk about all that stuff in the prequel. But yeah, Hidden Figures, 2 weeks' time. If you want to hear us talk about Hidden Figures, you can come back and listen then. And until that time, guys, gals, non-binary, and everybody else,
keep reading books,
keep watching movies,
and keep being awesome.
Be like Elle Woods. Every day. She made me want to be a better person, Katie. Not even kidding. It's like, man, find yourself an Elle Woods in your life. Everybody needs an Elle Woods in their life. I don't know why I'm doing Bernie Sanders hand motions right now, but I am.